If you picture Tudor government as one all-powerful monarch issuing grand commands from a throne, the reality was actually much messier. Most of the real work of running the kingdom happened in cramped council chambers full of ink-stained administrators, aging noblemen, and clerks trying to keep up with the flow of paper. The Privy Council did not look glamorous, but it was where the decisions that shaped daily life in Tudor England actually happened. Get cozy, my friend, grab a beverage, and let's chat about what the Privy Council actually did. Hey friend, welcome back to the YouTube channel for the Renaissance English History Podcast. I am your host, Heather. I've been podcasting on Tudor England since 2009 with my show, which makes it the original Tudor History Podcast. I am, as always, just delighted that you are here with me today to talk about the Privy Council. Let's dig in. This small group of advisors sat at the center of everything. They settled disputes before they turned into rebellions. They managed ambassadors. They oversaw arrests. They drafted proclamations. They answered letters from anxious local officials who needed guidance. Anytime anything went wrong, the first question was whether the council had been told about it. So where did this group actually come from? Well, the idea goes back to the medieval King's Council, which was a large, loose gathering of nobles, churchmen, and household officers who advised the monarch. It sounds super impressive, but it was far too big and unfocused to actually handle the hectic demands of ruling a country that was becoming more complex every decade. Henry VII, shaped by the chaos of the Wars of the Roses, preferred smaller, tightly controlled groups of trusted men. He still had the big ceremonial council, but real decisions happened in much smaller circles. Henry VIII inherited this structure, but he didn't always use it efficiently. Early in his reign, he kept a large council packed with ambitious noblemen competing for influence. It actually wound up producing more bickering than progress. Now, everything began to shift in the 1530s when Thomas Cromwell streamlined the system. He built a smaller, more professional group that could handle information quickly and issue clear, coordinated orders. That structure lasted through Edward and Mary, and by the time Elizabeth I took the throne, the Privy Council had actually become a permanent fixture, staffed by highly educated, deeply experienced administrators like William Cecil and Francis Walsingham. Instead of sprawling noble factions, the council ran as something much closer to a bureaucratic engine. So who actually sat on the Privy Council? Well, it always included a mix of senior nobles, bishops, and increasingly professional administrators. Under Henry VIII, you see men like Norfolk, Suffolk, wealthy lords with military experience and enormous personal followings. Under Edward VI, it included the Protector, Somerset, and his rivals. Under Mary, there was a blend of loyal Catholic peers and seasoned bureaucrats who knew how the machinery of government worked. Elizabeth narrowed it even more. Her top counselors tended to be university-educated men who shared her intense focus on policy. Cecil, Walsingham, Nicholas Bacon, later Robert Cecil, spent decades shaping the Tudor state. One important detail is that the council was never a room full of 20 people arguing. Attendance varied day to day. Most meetings had 8 to 12 people present, which made the discussion faster and the decisions easier to reach. The smaller size also meant that counselors took on huge workloads, often meeting twice a day and signing dozens of letters in between. So what did they actually do? The list is very long, but the easiest way to understand it is through the practical problems that they handled every week. The biggest job was national security. Counselors reviewed reports from abroad, they discussed intelligence gathered by agents, they managed relations with ambassadors, they handled intercepted letters, confessions from prisoners, and warnings from border officials. During Elizabeth's reign, Walsingham's intelligence network fed material to the council almost daily. Counselors sorted through it, decided what mattered, and recommended the next steps. They were equally involved in keeping order inside England. If a local official suspected a plot, a grain shortage, or a dangerous gathering, their letter landed on the council table. Counselors responded with instructions, warnings, or wanted more information. They ordered arrests, interrogations, and examinations of people accused of treason or sedition. They managed the early stages of major investigations before cases moved to the courts. The council also oversaw the machinery of administration. They approved licenses, issued proclamations, and managed appointments. Petitions from ordinary people sometimes reached them when local justice had broken down. They directed sheriffs and justices of the peace. They supervised regional councils in the north and in Wales, and they kept a steady flow of correspondence moving between London and the rest of the kingdom. Religion was another constant item on the council's agenda. Every Tudor monarch imposed a different religious settlement, and each change created confusion, resistance, and tons of paperwork. Counselors issued orders to bishops. They settled complaints about sermons, responded to reports of priests refusing to use the correct liturgy. Under Mary, the council kept a close eye on Protestant activity. Then, under Elizabeth, it monitored Catholic networks and foreign connections. Counselors were not theologians, but they were responsible for keeping the religious policy functioning on the ground. They also managed the practical side of governing a royal household. That meant supervising senior officials, reviewing appointments, and handling anything that seemed to threaten the security of the monarch. When high-profile prisoners needed to be held safely, the council issued instructions to the lieutenant of the Tower. When potential heirs were involved, it was the council controlling access, correspondence, and travel. Decisions about Lady Jane Grey, Mary Queen of Scots, and the young Edward VI all passed through the council chamber before reaching the monarch. So, how did the council operate behind the scenes? Well, meetings were frequent. Under Elizabeth, they often met twice a day. They had clerks who kept registers that recorded decisions, letters, and orders. Those registers survive, which tells us how quickly the council would move from one topic to the next. A single meeting might cover a piracy report, a complaint from a mayor, a request for grain shipments, and a question from the ambassador in France, all within an hour. Now, counselors didn't vote. They talked through each issue until they reached a workable plan. Some voices carried more weight than others. Cromwell during Henry VIII's middle years, or Cecil throughout Elizabeth's reign, they usually guided the discussion. But even the most influential counselors needed cooperation. Once the group agreed on a course of action, they presented it as a united recommendation. The relationship with the monarch also varied. Henry VIII often ignored his counselors when they contradicted him, especially in the 1530s. He would use the council when it suited him and then sideline it when he preferred to act through other favorites. But Elizabeth relied heavily on her council and expected detailed briefings. She listened, questioned, occasionally scolded them, but she still made the final decision. Counselors shaped policy, but they didn't control it. There are actually several moments when the Privy Council's work becomes visible in the historic record. In 1549, during Kett's Rebellion, the counselors scrambled to gather troops, write instructions, and maintain order while the government was actually nearly paralyzed by factional disputes. In 1553, the council tried to enforce the plan for Lady Jane Grey's succession, but shifted course once Mary gathered overwhelming support, which shows how political survival actually would also shape their choices. In 1586 and 87, their meetings on Mary Queen of Scots were tense and divided, especially over whether her execution was legally and politically safe. When Elizabeth hesitated, the council debated for weeks, trading drafts of warrants and warnings about consequences. And then there was 1588. When news arrived of the Spanish Armada, counselors worked almost around the clock. They issued orders for musters, they coordinated coastal defenses, and they pushed out a flood of letters to sheriffs, admirals, and local officials. Much of England's response to the crisis actually came through this channel. It wasn't glamorous, but without the council's paperwork and coordination, the defensive effort would have fallen apart. So by the end of Elizabeth's reign, the late Tudor period, the Privy Council had actually become the central mechanism that kept the government running. Monarchs provided the direction, but councillors handed the details that made those decisions possible. They reviewed intelligence, managed crises, and turned royal policy into something that local officials could actually enforce. It was the closest thing the Tudors had to a functioning administrative state, held together by a small group of overworked men who spent their days surrounded by letters, registers, and the constant pressure of keeping the kingdom stable. So, we will leave it there for right now. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, I sure would appreciate a press of that like button. It helps to feed the algorithm and get our content to more people. So what do you think? Would you have actually liked to be on the Privy Council? I think it might have been okay, but I don't think I would have liked to have been that close to power, because being close to power was really dangerous in the Tudor period. So I'm still going to go with my goal of just hanging out like middle gentry somewhere in the Midlands. That's fine. With somewhere Yorkshire, Whitby's lovely. Could handle just being a farmer in Whitby. That would be okay. Let me know what you think. Anyway, if you would like to keep watching these What Did They Actually Do videos, I did one the other week on what the nobility actually did. You can check that out here. Or here's a video that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. Remember, my friend, you are deeply loved. I am so glad that I share the planet with you. You make the planet a better place, and I'm grateful we got to spend this time together talking about Tudor government minutia. Super fun. I will be back very soon. In the meantime, don't forget to drink your water, friend.